You've been underestimated, passed over, doubted. Not always by others, but by your own reflection. You keep showing up, doing the work, and staying humble. But deep down, there's this quiet frustration. Why does no one see what I'm capable of? Here's the truth no one tells you. They won't see it until you show up like it's already yours. Until you stop walking in like you owe someone an apology for being great. Until you start acting, not pretending, but acting with intention, like someone who belongs, who leads, who doesn't wait to be chosen. Act as if you are the best, not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you finally remembered who you are. Walk into the room with stillness, speak with purpose, move with clarity. You don't need applause, you don't need a title, you need a decision that from this moment on, you will carry yourself like the man who already became what he was born to be. This video is a shift, a reset. 8 powerful perspectives rooted in Stoic discipline and real-world truth. No fluff, just tools. And if you apply them, you won't need to chase respect anymore. You'll walk into it. So if something in you knows it's time, subscribe, stay locked in, and let's begin. You're not waiting to become him. You're remembering you've been him all along. 1. Walk into every room like you were born to lead it. You don't need to raise your voice to own the room. You just need to stop shrinking in spaces you were made to elevate. Confidence isn't a performance. It's presence. And presence doesn't come from being the loudest, smartest, or most experienced. It comes from clarity, from the inner knowing that you belong, not because someone said so, but because you've earned your place through self-discipline, quiet resilience, and the way you carry yourself, even when no one is watching. Most people walk into a room wondering how they'll be perceived. You must walk in already knowing who you are. The room doesn't define you. You define how the room sees you. This shift is subtle, but everything changes when it happens. The way you stand, the way you breathe, the way your eyes don't search for approval. People can sense it. Without words, you signal, I'm not here to take space. I am the space. That doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from a still, unwavering sense of worth built through consistency, not applause. When you rely on external validation, your presence fluctuates with how others respond to you. When you lead from inner stillness, your presence expands no matter who's in the room. That's the Stoic way. You walk in, not to impress, but to embody. Your posture, your tone, your silence, they speak before your words do. The Stoics taught that control begins with the self. So when you step into any space, your first command is over your own thoughts. Is this room above me? No. It's just a setting. You bring the meaning. Your internal world is your true domain. What matters isn't the reaction you get, but the composure you keep. Too many people walk with fear in their bodies. It shows in their hands, their tone, their glance. They over-explain, they soften their voice, and they second-guess their right to contribute. But you weren't born to apologize for your presence. You were born to lead quietly through action and intention. So instead of asking, do I belong here? Say this: I'm here to bring value, not to be evaluated. No one tells the oak tree it has a right to stand tall. It just does. And its roots go deep enough that no wind can shake it. Be like that. Let your stillness speak louder than your need to be seen. Let your consistency make noise when others chase recognition. People follow clarity, not charisma. They trust stillness more than spectacle. That's what makes leaders different. They don't need to convince the room, they ground it. And this doesn't mean pretending. You don't have to fake confidence. You have to train it. You have to live in a way that gives you permission to walk tall. Show up prepared. Speak with intention. Let your daily habits back up your energy. Confidence is the byproduct of discipline. You train your mind not just to look strong, but to be unshakable, so that no matter who doubts you, you remain anchored in who you are. Your presence is your power. And when you truly believe that, you stop entering rooms with fear and start entering with purpose. Not to dominate, but to contribute. Not to impress, but to raise the bar. It's not about taking over. It's about showing up so fully that your energy changes the space. That's leadership. Quiet, certain, deeply rooted. Built not on noise, but on stillness. And yes, you will still feel fear sometimes. You will still walk into unfamiliar rooms, face people who might not understand your value. But that's not the moment to shrink. That's the moment to center. Take one breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Straighten your spine. Then step forward. Not because it's easy, but because you refuse to abandon the man you've worked to become. This is where everything begins. In how you enter. In how you look people in the eye without needing approval. In how your energy says, I'm not looking for a seat at the table, I build my own. That energy comes from truth. From repetition. From how you show up every single day, even when no one is watching, especially then. Because when that moment comes, when the room is full, when the eyes turn to you, you won't need to perform. You'll just need to walk forward as you've done 100 times before. With stillness, with purpose, with no need to prove anything. Walk into every room like you were born to lead it. Not because you're better than anyone, but because you've stopped acting like you're less. That shift, quiet and powerful, is where true confidence begins. And once you embody that, the room always notices. 2. Stop waiting for permission. Act like it's already yours. No one's coming to tell you that you're ready. No one's handing you a certificate that says you're now qualified to become who you were meant to be. And the longer you wait for that moment, the more it slips further out of reach. Because the truth is, you don't need permission to rise. You need movement. You need clarity. And above all, you need the courage to claim what already belongs to you. Most people live on pause. They hold back their voice, their ideas, their next move, because deep down, they're waiting. Waiting to feel confident enough. Waiting for someone to notice them. Waiting for a sign, a green light, a pat on the back that says, now's the time. But that moment never really comes. Not in the way they think it will. Because greatness doesn't knock on your door. You have to build the doorway, open it, and walk through it, without waiting for applause on the other side. This is what most never understand. The people you admire, the ones who move with power, who command respect, who walk into rooms like they own the ground, didn't wait to be told they could. They acted like it was already theirs. Over time, reality aligned with their conviction, not because they were lucky, but because they were consistent, and because they stopped seeking validation and started walking like the outcome had already been decided. I remember when I first stepped into something I wasn't qualified for. It wasn't a dream role or some elite opportunity. It was small, but it mattered. A chance to lead a room of people older, more experienced, and definitely more confident than I was. I didn't have the titles, I didn't have a track record. But I had one thing, the willingness to act like I could belong there, long before I had proof that I did. I walked in like I wasn't asking for permission. I was bringing value, not to impress, just to show up, grounded and focused. That moment taught me something I never forgot. The world responds to certainty. Not noise, not credentials, not potential, but certainty. That still, unshakable knowing inside of you that says, this may not be easy, but I'm not backing down from it. That mindset is power, and it's built, not in public, but in silence. In the way you train your mind, in the way you talk to yourself, in how you get up every day and act like the results are already on the way. This is what Stoicism teaches us, to stop waiting for the external world to cooperate before we act. You move because it's the right thing to do, not because it feels perfect. The Stoics didn't wait for ideal conditions. They built discipline in chaos. They found peace in pressure. And so can you. Because the truth is, your situation doesn't have to be perfect for you to start acting with presence and power. You just need to stop handing your agency to other people. No one owns your next step but you. So what does that look like in real life? It looks like pressing publish even when you're not sure anyone will watch. It looks like speaking up in a meeting even when your hands are shaking. It looks like starting a side hustle even if your friends don't understand it. And it looks like walking into unfamiliar spaces, not pretending you know everything, but refusing to act like you know nothing. That shift is quiet, but it's undeniable. When you stop waiting, your energy changes. People treat you differently, not because you're louder or flashier, but because there's something in you that feels anchored. Like you're no longer begging to be chosen. You've already chosen for yourself. That's what attracts opportunities. That's what makes you stand out. Not your resume, but your resolve. So start showing up like it's already yours. Not because you're faking it, but because you're aligning with the man you're becoming. Let your posture match your potential. Let your words reflect belief, not hesitation. Train your mind to move even when the fear is loud, and your reality will start to follow your lead. Because when you act like it's already yours, the world stops asking questions and starts adjusting. There's a moment in every journey where you stop knocking and start walking in. Let this be yours. No more waiting, no more second guessing, just a quiet, relentless decision. I don't need permission. I've already arrived. Now it's time to move like it. 3. Speak to yourself like someone who always wins every single day. Your mind is speaking, and whether you realize it or not, you're always listening. The voice you hear the most isn't from the outside world. It's the one inside your head. And that voice is either building your future or burying it under doubt. That's why this isn't just about positive thinking. It's about training your inner dialogue to reflect the man you are becoming, not the fears you're trying to escape. The way you speak to yourself is the foundation of how you show up in life. And if that voice keeps whispering that you're not enough, don't be surprised when your actions stay small. Confidence isn't something you switch on when you need it. It's something you rehearse internally long before the world sees it. You don't speak like a winner only after the win. You speak like a winner in the middle of the process, especially when there's no evidence yet, because that's when it matters most. That's where identity is formed, not in the spotlight, but in the silence of your own thoughts. Your inner dialogue is either sharpening your mindset or slowly sabotaging your belief. And the worst part is, most people don't even know how harsh they've become with themselves. They say things to their own reflection they'd never say to someone they love. They criticize more than they encourage. They replay failures, but rarely affirm effort. And then they wonder why they hesitate, why they second guess, why they can't lead. The Stoics believe that our thoughts are not facts, they're impressions. And every impression must be filtered before it becomes truth. That means when a thought arises, I'm not ready, I'll probably fail, I'm not like them, you don't just accept it, you challenge it, you pause, you ask, is this useful? Does this serve me? Or is this a fear I've repeated so many times that it just feels familiar? And when you catch that voice early, you can redirect it, not into fake positivity, but into intentional focus, into grounded belief, into language that reinforces discipline, no doubt. When your mind believes you're already behind, you start running from shame instead of moving with purpose. But when your mind hears strength, conviction, and clarity, you start to act in alignment with your potential. That's the real power of self-talk. It's not about feeling better, it's about showing up better. It's about turning down the noise of hesitation and turning up the voice that says, this is hard, but I've handled worse. I'm not perfect, but I'm prepared. I'm not waiting to be fearless, I'm moving anyway. You speak like a winner by first respecting yourself enough to stop attacking who you are. You redirect self-talk the same way you train your body, consistently, deliberately, without skipping. You speak like someone who always wins, not because you always do, but because you never let failure define you. You remind yourself that mistakes are just steps, that progress isn't always loud, that your identity is forged in how you show up when it would be easier to stay quiet, stay small, and stay scared. That's where real presence is born, from a mindset that's been trained to hold the line when emotions try to pull you off track. This is why inner language matters so much. The world will throw chaos your way. People will question your worth. Outcomes will be delayed. But your inner voice? That's the one thing you can command. That's your responsibility. That's where self-discipline begins, not just in actions, but in the words you allow to echo in your own mind. If you speak to yourself like someone who always loses, you'll move like someone afraid to try. But if you speak like someone who always wins, you'll make decisions from courage, not fear. And that one shift, just that, can completely alter your path. Start noticing how you talk to yourself when no one's around. When you fail, when you fall short, when doubt shows up, things feel slow. Don't just react, respond with purpose. Anchor your language, say what needs to be said, and say it like you mean it. Your inner dialogue sets the tone for your entire presence. That's why the Stoics taught us to guard our minds as we would guard a fortress. Because if you let the wrong words in, they don't just sit there. They lead your life. So speak to yourself with the same fire you'd use to lift someone you love out of darkness. Speak like a man who's been tested and still shows up. Speak like someone who's not waiting for permission to believe, because he already knows what he's capable of. And speak like this daily. Not once, not when you feel good. Every single day. When you train your mind to talk like a winner, everything else starts moving in that direction. You stop holding back. You stop hiding your voice. And most of all, you stop needing others to remind you who you are. The way you speak to yourself becomes the way you show up in life. So speak with strength. Speak with clarity. Speak like you already know this is yours to win. 4. Don't just compete. Own your lane and run it alone. Competition can sharpen your edge, but comparison will dull your spirit. The more you chase someone else's rhythm, the easier it becomes to lose your own. And what begins as motivation slowly turns into self-doubt. That's why you don't just need ambition, you need direction. Not a race against the crowd, but a path of your own making. A path where your standard isn't someone else's success, it's your progress, your depth, your discipline. It's tempting to keep score with everyone around you. Who's making more, who's moving faster, who's getting the attention you think you deserve. But that mindset builds anxiety, not mastery. The Stoics understood this. They taught that a man's peace comes not from being better than others, but from being better than he was yesterday. That's where real progress lives, not in applause, but in alignment. There's a man I know who runs a small coffee cart in a crowded city block. He doesn't have the trendiest setup. No social media campaign, no influencers are tagging his name, but every morning his line is the longest. Not because he's competing, but because he's consistent. He knows every regular's name. Remember how they take their drink. Greets each one with calm, steady energy. And while other shops argue over prices, ads, and promotions, he just shows up and delivers, day after day. He's not chasing the market, he's mastering his lane. When you own your lane, you don't waste time trying to outshine others. You sharpen what only you can do. You create your rhythm. You design your value around depth, not volume. That means fewer distractions, fewer detours, more clarity, more power. It means understanding that someone else winning doesn't mean you're losing. That their pace is irrelevant if their destination isn't yours. The man who stays in his lane doesn't fear competition, because he's too focused on building something they can't copy. You won't find confidence by checking who's ahead. You find it by looking inward and knowing your process is real. That you're not just active, you're intentional. That your steps come from purpose, not panic. And yes, sometimes that means walking alone. Not because you've been left behind, but because what you're building requires silence, depth, and time. That's what ownership feels like. Quiet, focused, unshakable. Comparison feeds the ego, but self-discipline feeds the soul. The more you look sideways, the more fragile your momentum becomes. That's why Stoicism calls you back to yourself, to your principles, your process, your core. It reminds you that your value isn't up for a vote, that your journey doesn't need validation, it needs commitment. And when you truly embrace that, you stop measuring yourself by someone else's metrics. You start choosing alignment over attention, mastery over metrics, peace over pressure. That's where clarity lives. When you stop chasing and start carving. When your energy stops leaking into envy and starts fueling focus. When you walk your path not with the hunger to win, but with the quiet fire to become. That shift changes how you move, how you speak, and how you show up. And the world starts noticing. Not because you shouted, but because you stayed. You kept building, kept refining, kept becoming the man who no longer needed to compete because he was the only one doing what he did. And yes, there will always be noise, always someone faster, flashier, louder. Let them be. You don't owe the world a race, you owe yourself results, but not the kind measured in applause. The kind measured in calm, in control, in the confidence that can't be taken because it wasn't built on someone else's approval. So show up fully to what's yours. Protect your energy, build your lane. And when the doubt creeps in, when comparison starts whispering again, pause and ask yourself, am I chasing their life or am I honoring mine? That question clears the noise, brings you back to focus, brings you back to who you are when no one's watching and who you're still becoming. You don't have to outrun anyone, you just have to stop leaving yourself behind. Because the man who owns his lane runs it with purpose and never abandons the pace that's true to him. That man doesn't need to compete. He already knows what he's building can't be replicated. 5. Confidence doesn't shout, it moves in silence and certainty. Real confidence doesn't walk into a room and announce itself. It doesn't raise its voice or beg to be seen. It moves quietly. It's in the way someone enters without rushing, the way they hold eye contact without forcing it, the way they listen more than they speak. And when they do speak, every word lands with purpose. Because confidence, when it's real, doesn't need permission, and it doesn't need attention. It simply is. We've been taught to associate confidence with being loud, charismatic, and constantly visible. But the strongest men don't advertise their strength. They don't need to. Their presence speaks before they do. And in a world full of noise, the man who doesn't need to prove himself often holds the most power. The Stoics called this apatheia, a state of internal stillness, of self-control so steady that nothing outside can disturb it. That's the kind of confidence that doesn't just impress. It commands respect without ever asking for it. There's a security guard at a corporate building I pass by often. You'd miss him if you weren't paying attention. He doesn't joke with the crowd, doesn't flex authority. But whenever there's tension, an argument, a loud customer, a moment where things feel unstable, he's the one everyone looks to. He doesn't yell, he doesn't panic, he just steps in, calm, clear, steady. And it's like the entire atmosphere adjusts to his pace. No badge, no ego, just presence. That's real power. And it's built, not born. That kind of still confidence doesn't come from luck or natural personality. It comes from doing the work when no one's watching, from building routines that sharpen your mind, from practicing discipline that doesn't need applause. It comes from knowing what you stand for and not being shaken when the room tests it. You don't need to talk about how hard you work when your results do the speaking. You don't need to list your wins when your energy tells the story. You stop needing the world to clap when you already know you're aligned. And that's the difference between ego and confidence. The ego needs the world to validate. Confidence comes from the inner peace that's built through quiet repetition, not public recognition. And when you live like that, you're no longer reactive. You're responsive. You're no longer trying to outshine anyone. You're just showing up as yourself, clear, grounded, and unshakable. The Stoic mind doesn't chase attention. It commands it through consistency. So many people post every small win, share every move, talk themselves up to feel in control. But deep down, they're compensating for the fact that they still don't fully believe what they're saying. The man who's truly confident doesn't post to be seen. He's too busy preparing for what's next. His mornings aren't curated, they're quiet. His goals aren't broadcast, they're built brick by brick, in silence. Not for show or growth. Do you want to stand out? Learn to say less and do more. Learn to move without alerting everyone around you. Not because you're hiding, but because your identity no longer depends on applause. Your validation comes from execution, from knowing you did what needed to be done, whether anyone clapped or not. That's real emotional control. That's Stoic confidence. It's not about not feeling fear. It's about not letting fear dictate how you move. It's about being able to stand still in a storm and still make the right decision, without panic, without drama. Just calm precision. This doesn't mean silence in every situation. It means knowing when your words matter and when your energy does the talking for you. It means removing the need to explain, defend, or justify yourself constantly. It means replacing the need to be seen with the choice to be centered. Because once you learn how to lead yourself, you stop needing to impress anyone else. Train your confidence like you train your body, quietly, repetitively, with intention, with patience. Watch how the results begin to shape you. Watch how your presence starts shifting the rooms you walk into. Not because you try to dominate, but because you don't flinch, you don't beg, you don't over-explain, you just show up. Fully, completely, without needing permission to exist powerfully. So the next time you feel the urge to prove something, pause. Ask yourself, do I need to say this to be understood, or am I saying it to be seen? If the latter, take a breath and return to your center. Walk with clarity, work in silence. Let your presence carry the weight of your preparation. Because in the end, real confidence doesn't raise its voice. It raises the standard. It doesn't need to shine. It creates light wherever it moves. And the man who walks with that kind of energy, he doesn't need to say a word. The room already knows. 6. Train like the champion you haven't shown the world yet. You don't need a trophy to start living like a winner. You don't need applause to begin building discipline. If you're waiting for recognition before you act seriously, you've already lost your edge. The work doesn't start after the world sees you. It begins now, in silence, in routine, in repetition, long before anyone claps for you. Most people delay greatness because they think success is something that happens once the spotlight finds them. But the reality is much simpler and much tougher. You don't get ready when the moment comes. You become the moment by getting ready every day, especially when no one's watching. The world won't make space for you until you prove you can hold it. That proof isn't loud. It's built through quiet mornings, long nights, and a mind trained to show up on good days, bad days, and especially the in-between. This isn't about hustle for show. It's about discipline as identity. You train like a champion, not because the world has crowned you, but because you've already decided who you are. That decision isn't loud either. It's built in the way you commit when you're tired, in the way you repeat the basics, in the way you sharpen the small things that no one claps for. That's the Stoic way: detachment from outcome, obsession with process. No one needs to see your grind for it to matter. You don't need to post it. You don't need to announce it. You need to own it. Every day, ask yourself one thing: am I preparing like the man I want to become? If the answer is no, change the standard. If the answer is yes, double down. The difference between potential and mastery is consistency, not occasional intensity, daily commitment. Success doesn't belong to those who work when they feel like it. It belongs to the ones who train their mind to work regardless. That means waking up with focus, not excuses. It means prioritizing what builds you, not what distracts you. It means holding yourself to a level of excellence that doesn't wait for a deadline or a title. Because one day, the moment will come, the room will be full, the lights will be on, and when that happens, it'll be too late to prepare. You'll only be able to show who you've already become. The world will eventually notice. That's inevitable. But it won't happen because you begged for attention. It'll happen because your work has become undeniable. Because your presence started speaking louder than your words. Because everything you did in the shadows made you someone who shines under pressure without flinching. This is why Stoicism matters. Because it teaches you to anchor yourself in what you can control. You can't control the timing. You can't control the noise. But you can control your input, your hours, your habits, your discipline. You can control the story you write with your effort, day in, day out. And that's where real confidence is born. Not in fake motivation, not in a single breakthrough, but in the way you decide every day not to waste your gift. Champions aren't built in competition. They're built in silence, in solitude, in structure. In a way, they show up with the same energy, whether there's a crowd or not. Whether the world's paying attention or forgetting their name. They don't rely on external noise. They rely on internal standards. And that's the only way to create a version of yourself that the world can't ignore, even if they try. So whatever your craft is, master it. Whatever your path is, walk it with focus. Build your body. Sharpen your words. Calm your mind. Lead yourself before you try to lead anyone else. You don't need an audience to get serious. You need a reason. And if your reason is real enough, that's all the fire you need. Every rep, every decision, every quiet hour where you could coast, but don't. That's what separates the man who performs once from the man who dominates consistently. Because talent will make people look at you once, but training will make them remember you. And your training, your mindset, your stoic discipline, that's what makes the difference. So train like the champion you haven't shown the world yet. Not to prove anything, not to chase praise, but because you've chosen to live at the level of the man you respect. because you know that the standard isn't what the world sees. It's what you demand from yourself when no one's watching. And one day, when the lights hit and the room watches and the moment finally comes, you won't have to become ready. You'll just walk in, already built. 7. Every room gets brighter when you show up fully. You don't have to dim your light to make other people feel comfortable. And you don't need to shrink your energy just because someone else hasn't figured out how to expand theirs. The truth is, when you show up fully, with calm confidence, quiet strength, and real presence, every room you enter changes. Not because you're loud, not because you demand attention, but because you carry the kind of energy that doesn't need to compete. It simply fills the space. Too often, people mute their brilliance out of fear they'll be too much. They hold back their ideas, lower their tone, and hesitate to take up space. Not because they don't know who they are, but because they think being fully seen might make others uncomfortable. But you weren't built to be a watered-down version of yourself. And real Stoic strength isn't about disappearing. It's about showing up with intention, regardless of the response. You're not here to overpower others. You're here to embody clarity, consistency, and calm focus so deeply that others begin to raise their own standard without you saying a word. When you walk into a room with presence, people can feel it. Not because you're performing, but because your energy is anchored. Your eyes don't dart. Your posture is grounded. Your words come from conviction, not from needing approval. That doesn't intimidate people, it inspires them. That kind of presence speaks to something deep in others. A reminder of what it looks like to be rooted, centered, and aligned. And that only happens when you stop holding back. When you stop apologizing for your strength. When you stop making yourself small, no one feels insecure. Insecurity isn't your burden to carry. What you can bring is intention, kindness, focus, stillness. All of those are forms of leadership. The most powerful men aren't the ones who command attention. They're the ones who earn respect through how they show up, especially when nothing is said. The Stoics taught that your character reveals itself most clearly in how you behave in ordinary situations. That means the meeting room, the hallway, the casual conversation. It's not about making a big entrance. It's about consistency in small moments. A calm demeanor when others are stressed, a clear answer when others are vague, a steady tone when others rush. That kind of consistency doesn't come from training for performance. It comes from living aligned, daily, internally, and intentionally. So if you want to bring value into every space, stop asking how to be impressive. Ask instead, am I being fully present right now? Presence is rare in a world obsessed with distraction. And that's why it's powerful. When you show up without your mind drifting, when your focus is sharp, when your energy is clean, people feel that. They trust it. Not because you're trying to impress, but because you're giving something very few people give. Your full self. Right here, right now. That's the version of you that shifts the atmosphere. The version that doesn't need attention to be effective. That doesn't need noise to lead. That doesn't need to dominate to influence. And when you operate from that place, you no longer walk into rooms wondering how you'll be received. You walk in knowing exactly what you bring, and you bring it without apology. A presence like that isn't arrogant. It's anchored. It's a form of respect for yourself and for the space you're in. You're not trying to stand above anyone. You're simply refusing to fall beneath yourself. That's what makes people notice. That's what creates real gravity. You don't pull people in with charm. You draw them in with consistency, clarity, and discipline. With energy that's stable, not scattered. And the more you live like that, the more you'll notice something shift. Not just in how people treat you, but in how you treat yourself. You start speaking more clearly, thinking more sharply, choosing more wisely. Because when you no longer waste energy pretending, you get to use it fully for creating, building, and contributing. You're no longer fragmented, you're fully present. And when you live fully present, you become the kind of man who makes everything around you better without needing credit for it. So stop holding back. Stop shrinking in spaces that could use your strength. Stop assuming that making yourself smaller is the same as being humble. Humility isn't hiding your light. It's knowing your light isn't about you. It's about what you do with it. When you show up fully, You give others permission to do the same. That's what changes rooms. That's what shifts culture. That's what inspires transformation. Not with noise, but with presence. And if you ever feel yourself withdrawing out of fear of being too much, remember this. You weren't given that fire to keep it quiet. You were given it to light the way. So walk in fully, speak calmly, act intentionally, and let the room adjust to your energy. Not because you demand it, but because you've trained yourself to lead, simply by being exactly who you are. Every room gets brighter when you stop hiding. So stop hiding. 8. Believe so deeply that success has no choice but to follow. There comes a point where belief isn't optional. It becomes your only way forward. Because everything in the outside world might still say, you're not there yet. But something inside you answers back, watch me. That's not a delusion. That's a decision. That's the kind of belief that bends reality over time. Not because the world is kind, but because you've trained your mind to walk as if success has already been written, and your job is just to keep turning the pages. When your belief is deep enough, doubt doesn't disappear, but it stops winning. The voice that used to hold you back, the one that said you're not ready, not smart enough, not built for this, starts to get drowned out by something stronger. Conviction, clarity, calm inner knowing. And that belief shifts your entire energy. You no longer chase outcomes with desperation. You start building them with discipline. You don't move to prove anything. You move because you've already accepted that success is the natural consequence of consistency. That shift changes how you speak, how you train, and how you walk into every situation. Quietly certain, fully present, detached from the timeline, but obsessed with the process. The Stoics taught that we must learn to control what we can and let go of what we cannot. But belief that sits fully in your control, you choose it. Every morning, in every decision, in the face of delay, of rejection, of silence. When nothing seems to be working, belief is what keeps you moving anyway. Not out of blind hope, but out of practiced mental discipline. You believe not because things look promising. You believe because you've built the mindset of someone who's already arrived, even when the world hasn't caught up yet. This belief isn't a fantasy. It's forged. It comes from how you talk to yourself at your lowest, from how you move when there's no reward, from how you reset after every failure, not by giving up, but by showing up again, and again, and again. That's the difference between someone who tries and someone who decides. The former waits to believe after the win. The latter believes so deeply that the win becomes inevitable, not because of luck, but because he never gave himself the option to quit. You don't build this kind of inner strength in comfort. You build it when the doubt creeps in, and you keep going anyway. When your plan falls apart, you adjust without losing your center. When people stop clapping and you keep showing up, not for them, but for the man you're becoming. That's where the shift happens, from hoping for success to moving like it already belongs to you. And when that belief takes root, your habits change. Your standards rise. You don't tolerate distractions the same way. You don't entertain old stories that kept you small. You don't feed the same fears because now your identity is aligned with a higher level of focus, clarity, and calm. This is what Stoic strength looks like. Not blind optimism, but grounded belief paired with relentless action. The kind of belief that doesn't need evidence, it becomes the evidence. Do you want to know how to make the world take you seriously? Start by taking your vision seriously. Speak it into your days. Walk like you're already in motion. Stop waiting for approval and start building your reality from the inside out. Because when your belief becomes non-negotiable, life begins to respond. Slowly at first, then suddenly. The right people show up, the right ideas emerge, the right doors crack open, not because you forced them, but because you were ready when they did. But readiness isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in solitude, in silence, in the repetitions no one sees. And belief is what keeps you going when those reps get heavy, when you're tired, when progress feels invisible. You believe anyway, not with noise, not with ego, but with steady steps. Over time, that kind of mindset becomes unshakable. And when your mindset becomes unshakable, success isn't something you chase, it's something you magnetize. So if you're still waiting for a sign, make this it. Not because these words are magic, but because you're finally ready to stop wondering and start becoming. Believe so deeply that even your setbacks start working in your favor. Believe so consistently that every part of you starts moving in alignment. And believe so fiercely that eventually success has no choice but to follow, because you've already built yourself into the kind of man who can carry it. You don't rise by waiting. You rise by deciding. And once you believe without hesitation, everything else begins to bend in your direction. Every breakthrough begins in silence, when no one's watching, when there's no reward yet, and when all you have is a choice. A choice to believe, a choice to act, a choice to train your mind before the world sees your results. And through this journey, we've uncovered something powerful, that confidence doesn't need noise, that your energy shapes rooms, and that the way you speak to yourself defines the reality you walk into. You've seen that true confidence is calm, focused, and deeply rooted in self-discipline. You've understood that owning your lane brings clarity, and that mastery isn't found through comparison, but through consistent presence. And most importantly, you've realized that when you believe so deeply in the man you're becoming, success has no choice but to follow. Not because of luck, but because of how you carry yourself. Quietly, relentlessly, like someone who's already chosen their path. But none of this matters if you don't apply it. These aren't just ideas, they're practices. Daily habits are rooted in a Stoic mindset and mental discipline. Don't wait for the right time. The time is now. Train like you've already arrived. Speak like someone who wins. Move with presence, own your space, build your lane. And if this message spoke to you, don't let it end here. Take a few minutes today. Reflect, realign, reset. In the comments below, share your own path. What are you building? What silent battles are you winning? What mindset are you choosing today? The more we speak the truth, the more we strengthen each other. And when you live these truths, not once but every single day, you don't just chase success. You become the reason it shows up.